in this new era of college football, you got to keep up with the Joneses.
Eli Drinkwitz has risen the expectation.
Drink has the trajectory of the program in the right direction.
If you're a head coach, you've either got to dive into the business or you've got to dive into the NFL.
With all these ever-changing dynamics surrounding their sports, the off-season goal of every coach remains the same: set a foundation to build sustainable success and compete for championships.
Hey, boss.
Hey, Coach. How you doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
Checking out a little off-season workout.
Oh, man, these boys are getting after it. Laying a good foundation right now.
Good. You feeling good about it?
Yeah, so far so good. You know, just trying to get everybody acclimated to how we do things.
For Mizzou head football coach Eli Drinkwitz, this will be his 7th offseason to construct a winning team in Columbia, while still adapting to the changes that have coincided with his time leading the Tigers.
How do you describe sort of what we've been through over the last few years and how that's different for you?
Well, I think the difference is we brought in 38 new players to our team, and all from different backgrounds. We brought in 5th-year seniors and true freshmen who just graduated high school. And we're trying to teach them what it means to be a Missouri Tiger, how to develop an elite edge, and then lay the foundations of our scheme so that we can play a game and win in August.
Describe how different that is for you, say now, versus what it was like kind of 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Before this whole kind of NIL era.
Yeah.
Things were
I think the biggest
now.
thing is the predictability of your roster. You know, in the past, you would have seniors graduate, and that was really the only people that you would lose off of your team. Now with free access transfers and NIL, you know, we've brought in 3 quarterbacks, we've brought in 4 wide receivers, and so the whole makeup of your team can change year in and year out. And it's an awesome opportunity to really build your roster, and it's an awesome opportunity for us. We were able to retain the key components of our team and then try to strengthen and fortify some areas that might have been weaknesses.
One of the things that's genuinely impressed me about you and how you've managed your program is your ability to kind of navigate all this change and all the things we're dealing with. How much has your role had to change because of transfers, NIL, this kind of new era work?
Well, I think adaptability has been really key for our success, and I think adaptability is the key to future success. I think the realities of being the head football coach now are much more about roster management and CEO of an organization, whereas prior, coaches were hired based off of their tactical advantages. You know, how good were they in tactically, you know, schematics, and what could they do in the recruiting realm. Now recruiting is important, but it's different because you got to manage, okay, how do we recruit, who are we recruiting, what are the positions that we need to retain, how can we go raise money, where do we want to invest our money, what is the style of play that we want to develop here, and what's the vision for the future. And I think for us, that's really been, you know, the thing that I've had to adapt to the most.
Would you have ever imagined having to manage the financial side as much as you do? We have to talk about it.
No, because I don't even manage the checkbook at home. You know, I have no idea how to balance a checkbook. But here, you know, you're constantly balancing, you know, how much do we want to pay for this position? What is the total cap number that we're going to operate with? How do we want to divide up our money, offense, defense, and special teams? You know, those are decisions that everybody's got to make based off of the talent that you can acquire.
I've been also really impressed with the process you manage behind the scenes. You know, talk about like roster building and the kind of the strategy behind the finances and how scientific that's gotten.
Well, I think the one thing that we do with our team and with our staff is try to have a lot of transparency about this is what we have and this is how we're going to have to divide it up, so that you know, there's not a lot of secrecy, and try to eliminate the jealousy or confusion about what it is. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, so to speak, but you know, you have to figure out, like I said earlier, how do we want to invest the money? What are the percentages that we're going to use? How much do we want to use for freshmen? How much do we want to use for retention? How much do we want to use out of the portal? How much more is it going to cost to get a player out of the portal than it is to be able to sign somebody or develop your own players? And there's a lot to that. And then, you know, with an uncapped market and the fact that there's free agency every year there's been a price increase in what the talent acquisition out of the portal is going to be. And so trying to factor all those things, it's kind of like Rain Man, you know, you kind of see all these numbers multiplying, you just try to figure it out the best you can.
For any modern college football coach, Developing a financial game plan each season needs to be as sophisticated and flexible as is week-to-week opponent prep during the season. Since the landmark changes that revolutionized college athletics in 2021, there's no firm structure, just a shifting market shaped by outside money, corporate and local business support, and the simple reality that elite athletes are hard to find and in high demand.
When I sit down with folks and try to explain the NIL era, they say to me, so tell me about this NIL thing.
Yeah.
And we both know it's a lot more complex than that.
Yeah.
There's this revenue share piece, which is really just institutional NIL. Somebody we're paying directly to student athletes for their NIL. But that has that cap, right? For this year and this new system we're in this year, it's $20.5 million, and then each sport is allocated a certain amount, right? Buying shares going to football because of what that drives here and everywhere else you talk to. And then the coach, at least how we operate, really has the ability to kind of manage and dictate that budget. Then the other piece of this is the third party NIL, right? So that is the piece that is now regulated. Didn't used to be in the old collective world, but now we have the clearinghouse. And that's really important, as we know, because that doesn't have a cap, but it's real NIL that a sponsor business pays to a student athlete for their NIL rights.
Yeah.
Anything else you would add to that in terms of like how you describe what it really is?
I think that's the description you want. I just think that our ability to generate third-party NIL is going to be key for our success moving forward. The teams that can acquire the best talent are going to be the teams that have the most potential of success. And so we're constantly looking to see, whether it's for wrestling or football or basketball or women's gymnastics, how can we get third-party NIL and how can we get businesses to use our student athletes as people that advertise their product?
All that's obviously changed the recruiting process more than just a little bit, as we talked many times. But just from like a recruit's perspective or their family, what are the first things they really want to know? What does that look like now in the recruiting process for you?
Yeah, how much are we going to get paid? What is the percentage that you have for starters? What is the percentage for backup? How do you see me in the program? If I'm a freshman, what is that money still going to look like for the first year? What can it look like as a max potential? You have to be able to be transparent with them about, hey, this is what that we can afford, and realizing in any negotiation, somebody always wants more.
Obviously, the agents have a big piece of that. You and I know that, and the people that deal with it directly, manage it directly, understand that clearly. I find fans are pretty surprised many times to learn the level of representation that the young people have and kind of what that process really looks like.
The reality is everybody has an agent now. They want somebody that's looking out for their best interest. At least that's what their opinion of it is. The challenging thing for us is there is no NFLPA or registration requirements. And so anybody can, in theory, be an agent as long as they supposedly register with the state of Missouri. And some of them know what they're doing, some of them don't. Some understand contract language, some of them don't. Some of them operate in good faith, some of them don't. The reality of it is in the NFL, there's about 1,000 certified agents. And the teams know them because they're going to keep coming back. And so there's a level of transparency and honesty that has to be able to be used. In our system, there's just people that are acting as agents. And so you don't know if they're pitting one school against each other based off of real money or just anticipated offers. And so it creates a challenging atmosphere in negotiations because, there is a player that you really want, but you got to decide what is the max offer that we can offer that doesn't put our team in jeopardy, but also gets the ability to secure the player. It really becomes difficult the closer you get to whether it's signing day in high school or in the portal with how quickly these decisions get made. The pressure really adds quickly.
Young people are represented by some that may be well positioned to do that and many that aren't, right? And there's also no regulation over what they charge young people, right? So we have recruits out there that could be getting taken advantage of in different ways or manipulated behind the scenes and sort of sold from one school to the next in a lot of ways.
I think the reality of it is in the NFL, there's a rule that can only take 3% of the contract, and then traditional NIL or marketing portions of a contract, they could charge up to 20%. Well, since for us, everything is technically NIL, agents started at a 20%. Now they've transitioned down. I think that's not the norm anymore because they've realized that rev share is guaranteed money, and the NIL from third party, while it's not guaranteed, is kind of assured to them. It's not responsible to charge at a 20% rate, but there are still some that do that. It's more typical of a 5 or 10% rate, and then there's some that are in the threes, but not very many.
Yeah.
In the 2026 landscape, the closed-door meeting between a coach, a player, and an agent has officially moved from recruiting violation to a standard business procedure. These three-party business negotiations are now a fixture, with the NCAA's April 2026 ruling officially allowing agents to represent players in all facets, including direct revenue sharing negotiations with the school.
We go into these conversations and you're managing a budget. I feel like we got a very competitive budget, but we're also not at the very top, as we know. That happens really before that transfer portal hits, right? So you go through this retention process with a certain budget, and then you enter the next phase of that, which is the transfer portal madness that happens. Maybe talk about the first part of that as it relates to retention of the players and how NIL factors into that process.
It's based off of how we want to retain them, based off the value that we see them as, and are they willing to accept the deal that we have in place for them. And that's where the agent and the negotiation comes in. That's where a lot of the illegal tampering or legal tampering happens, where agents are calling other schools to say, hey, I've got this player X, what would you be willing to pay him? And in a hypothetical world, they offer a number, and then they bring that number to us and basically ask, are we willing to match it or not match it? And so, as a coach, you try to build relationships with the player, the agent, and the parent, and say, hey, this is the best opportunity that your son has, or this is why we see him as a great fit for us. And, you try to do the very best deal that you can for that player, understanding that there is a limit to what the funds are. And so there are going to be players that, I had a meeting with our guys and said, hey, I want to keep all of y'all as much as I can, but in order to do that, not everybody's going to be the highest paid player at their position. There has to be some sort of give and take. And some people are willing to do that, some people aren't. And that's totally fine and understandable. Everybody's got decisions to make that are based on a business-related model. And that's really what we've created, is a business-related model.
There's a lot of strategy behind all that in there, but there's opportunity in that too, right? I mean, you have a chance to improve in some areas from year to year. Any insight you provide about what that kind of strategy looks like behind the scenes?
We kind of categorize each player that are coming out of the portal. Are they coming for mercenary reasons? Are they coming because they want to level up in the competition? Are they coming because they were cycled out of their last school? And what does that look like? What is the best player that we can get at this position for that price point? Is it based off of, hey, he has a lot of production at a lower level? Or is it, hey, he has the physical traits necessary in order to potentially develop into an NFL player? Are we recruiting him to be the starter? Are we recruiting him to be a competitor for the starter? Are we recruiting him to provide depth for us? And all of those things factor in. And then really, as we got towards the end of the portal and we had some scholarship spaces available, we said, hey, who is best available that could add value to us in the special teams realm? And could we find a competitive advantage adding some speed, physicality on special teams? And so, we're just constantly looking to how do we improve our team? What are the nuts and bolts of our team? You'll hear us talk all the time. We believe tough teams stop the run the ball, and cover kicks. So we're always going to be able to do those three things in order to help us win games. And then how do we improve in each one of those phases?
We talk a lot about the value of third-party NIL, not just to our competitiveness, because that is critical, right? We have to have that support to win, and that is an investment on their part in the product that they're investing in from a sponsorship standpoint. But the more we win, the more valuable that is for them, right? That's a direct investment in that success. But it's also a way for them to really activate and storytell around their sponsorship in a humanized way that's impactful, right? It really adds to their sponsorship mix in a significant way. And we work really hard behind the scenes to help produce all that, come up with the ideas, it is beyond just kind of what it was before, where it just kind of paid players, right?
Yeah.
NIL had this sort of negative connotation, and now it's evolving in a professionalized way that I think is really healthy, and it can really have an impact.
Now they can share their story and tell their story, and I think it's a really good thing. And I think we have a 20-something game home sellout streak. We've created an atmosphere here in Columbia, and I think if you look around the community, there's a lot of people benefiting from the fact that sports are popular in the state of Missouri, in Columbia. I think not only has our enrollment increased, I think that's also increased the housing boom in Columbia, Missouri. It's also increased the number of apartments that are being rented. And so, I would just ask those guys that if you've benefited financially from the success that we've had on the field, maybe think about partnering with some of our athletes to create an opportunity for that to continue, right? Because the more success we have, the more growth there has been in Columbia, and the more growth that's been for the local economy here.
I tell folks too, they don't have to figure it all out. Like all they got to do is declare to us that they're willing and open, and then we'll walk through a process to find a fit for them. Right? If they have a passion for Mizzou football, or they have a connection with a certain player, great. But if not, we can help come up with all those concepts and put something together for them that really works for their organization or business. And it can be really powerful when it's done the right way. You and the folks here really looked at this as an opportunity, right? And created a structure that was sort of ahead of its time. So as you go back and think about that, what was important about it, and maybe what do we continue to do to be flexible and stay ahead?
Well, I think it was important that we were able to rally and get support from the state legislature, the board of curators, and everybody understanding the significance of what this change was going to be and how do we stay ahead of it. I think the advantage that we can create moving forward is that the more people that we can get involved in third-party NIL through Every True Tiger brands, the better our competitive advantage is going to be moving forward. The more that the Fortune 500 companies, or the companies in St. Louis and Kansas City and in Columbia and wherever else in the state of Missouri say, hey, I want to align with what Mizzou Athletics is doing in the future so that we can create a competitive team for the state of Missouri, I think that's going to be the thing that propels us to win championships. And the fact is, all of their support, whether you're from Mexico, Missouri, whether you're from the Cape, whether you're down in Branson or Joplin, your support to Every True Tiger brands is going to accelerate our chance to win a championship. And everybody can have a say in it, and everybody can have a piece of that ownership. What makes the Green Bay Packers so unique is that all of those people have ownership stake. It's totally different than everywhere else in the NFL, and that's really what we're providing the opportunity with the Mizzou Tiger football team. With Every True Tiger brand, every person who wants to get a part of third-party NIL, whether you're down south in Springfield, or if you're in Lebanon, you can have an impact on us winning a championship. And when you come to a game or see us on TV, you can identify with one of the players and say, I helped support Mizzou win.
I know we've talked about it before. I've been very vocal about the fact that I believe this is a very unique opportunity for Mizzou in this time frame that this candidly didn't exist to the same level, say 5 or 10 years previously. But now we've got this chance ahead of us. So in your mind, why is that the case?
Yeah, I think in the past, recruiting was all based off of logos and past history of success, right? You wanted to align with a certain school because of the number of draft picks that they produced or the number of championships that you got to be a part of. Well, now it's really based apart of what are the financial opportunities that you can provide and what does the NIL look like. And it has leveled the playing ground. It gives you a chance to really retain the in-state talent and go out and acquire the talent. And so for a place like Missouri that has got a great opportunity because of two large metropolitan areas in St. Louis and Kansas City, because we have this growing community of Columbia, because we have alignment, if we can get investment at a high level, no different than what Indiana did this year with the unique investments that they've had, you can build a football team that can be competitive quickly.
Yeah, it really excites me to think about what can be done here that's really never been done. Get us to a point where we're consistently, truly competing to be in the college football playoffs and competing for championships year in, year out. Getting a program to that point is a massive shift and a lot of work. But if you step back and think about what things have to be in place to get that done, I think it helps to have real momentum, right? Because to take that step and to consistently get there. But you think about the things that a lot of places don't have, right? They may not have momentum. They may not have the alignment that I talked about. They may not have the capacity, the financial capacity, the fan capacity. There just may not be a situation or a time for them to get to that. The consistency of leadership, right? Having you in this role, for a few years from now, right? I looked it up. I think you are the third longest tenured football or men's basketball coach in the conference.
Wow.
So you think about that in terms of those high-profile coaches in the SEC. I knew you were probably second in football,
yeah.
But you're the third overall in both. And that's a unique spot for us to be in. To have that continuity. What excites you the most about what's next for us?
Yeah, I think, for the last 3 years going into November, we've been in the conversation for the playoffs, which has been something that's been exciting for our program and given us great momentum. 3 years ago, we kicked off this new indoor facility and saw a tremendous jump in the development of our program. Now we've got the North End Zone facility, we've got a sellout streak, we've got a really good home football streak that's, we're a very difficult place to play at home. And so with that being built, with that being kicked off this season, with the team that we've put together, with the opportunities that we have in the state, this is a very sound financial state, from 11 Fortune 500 companies to a tremendous healthcare system, to tremendous growth. I mean, we're the middle of the middle. So at Columbia, Missouri. So there's so many opportunities, and there is tremendous alignment, from coordinators to head coaches to strength coaches. We know what we're doing, and now it's just about doing it better, recreating that process. And it talks about in the book Legacy, go for the gaps, right? There's a gap in the system right now. I'm not saying there's no rules, but there's opportunities for us to really push and try to take advantage of the opportunity. And that's really what we're trying to do from a football realm and from a tactical realm, but it's also what we're trying to do in the NIL era. And just very appreciative to the president, to the board, and to the governor, and to you for pushing this North End Zone and creating a unique stadium feel that we've never had here before. And so we look forward to winning and utilizing that winning and success momentum to try to continue to propel us forward.
For me, that's the excitement of the challenge, right? And to get to a point where we have memories here that are created that have never existed before,
right,
is a pretty special place to be in. And just appreciate the leadership you've provided to the program. I love watching you coach and do what you do. And I know I speak for Mizzou folks everywhere. We're happy to support you. And I know you're busy. Appreciate you taking the time. Let's get back to work and get after it.
I better get you recruited.
COU.
While the football program at Mizzou works to fortify a foundation built over years of continuity, other corners of the athletics department are still building that base. And both will be equally important to the Tigers' championship aspirations. The impact of this new landscape plays much differently on the turf than it does on the hardwood. For Kelly Harper's women's basketball program, the roster scale is smaller, but the stakes are just as high. With fewer athletes overall, every NIL deal and every transfer portal entry carries more weight. And a single roster shift can change the trajectory of a growing program overnight.
I think we have to have high character within our program, everyone that's in our program. And we have to have some really deep conversations in the recruiting process, because every player that we bring in has to be able to elevate our program in a huge way, and that's culturally and on the court. So we have to have the same vision and we have to have the same goals.